Well, they tried to shut us up the first time, but they won't stop us this time. Welcome to You'll Probably Agree. And today we have Jeff York on from the Establishing Shot. And today we're talking about, I've talked about it before on my show, but I always love to bring it up again because why not open up some old wounds? And that is the biggest Oscar snubs ever. Uh, but speaking of which, when I think of the biggest Oscar snubs ever, I think the first one that comes to my mind is when Shakespeare in Love beat Saving Private Ryan at the Oscars. I mean, I don't know what your reaction was to that one when that happened. Did you see that happen live when that was going on?
I did. I'll be a defender of Shakespeare in Love. I think it's a very good film, and
Okay.
it had won some it won the best musical or comedy at the Golden Globe. So it wasn't unprecedented that it was not a possible contender. But there was definitely the momentum and the energy around Saving Private Ryan. I will say this: I think Saving Private Ryan is a good film with a great opening half hour.
Mm-hmm.
That first half hour, the way Spielberg shoots D-Day and the invasion is unbelievable. And I think a lot of the energy and the goodwill towards the rest of the film is carried through that stark reality of the horrors of war and all what is at stake. I think the idea of looking for this, son whose three brothers have died and then he doesn't want to go and all that is a little hackneyed. So I think comparatively, Tom Stoppard's script for Shakespeare in Love I think just stands up as a little bit more sophisticated because it's also about the arts and the difficulties of theater and stuff. The other thing too, Mike, that as we get into the show tonight, I think we'll understand Hollywood never misses an opportunity to pat itself on the back. So they almost always will vote for a show business themed film over any kind of politics or history lesson or whatever else. But yeah, that was a big one. I mean, I think that's one of the main ones that people still can't believe that Spielberg won director and it won a number of other Oscars and it was a very well acclaimed film, but it didn't win that. And you're right, Harvey Weinstein campaigned, as we talked about a little bit last week. He was out there shaking the flesh, inviting people, getting all the stars to show up to do Q&As. And Spielberg famously did not do press then. That's a different world now. Now he does press. And he learned a lesson. In fact, he even said after he lost, he said, we might have won Best Picture if we put ourselves out there more. But they didn't. And so, Harvey Weinstein kind of taught the Academy and maybe Hollywood a lesson in promotion. Maybe it was too much, to your point that it was the wrong winner. But things like that made a difference.
I wonder if even if he did press, if it would have made a difference because back then, like Weinstein basically like owned and controlled Hollywood, and like that's basically how that movie ended up winning. I mean, beyond the discussing reasons why it won, there is that common criticism about Saving Private Ryan where they say, "Oh yeah, after the first 20 minutes, it gets kind of boring," and I'm like, I don't think so. I've never seen a war film where the camaraderie between soldiers feels so genuine and feels so heartbreaking. Like when Wade dies, the medic, that is one of the most
Yes.
heart-wrenching deaths I've ever seen put on cinema.
No, I
And
think
there's yeah.
I think you're right. I mean, I think it's very well shot, very well acted. But you have to admit that the idea of like, we have to save this one soldier because his other brothers have all died. And so we're sending this troop in at much consternation and danger to themselves to find this one soldier to hopefully get him out. I mean, that's a cornball plot from yesteryear of Hollywood. And it's placed in a very modern, violent take on what war is. But I think that core story is corny. And I think that ultimately prevents it from being a great, great, great film. I think there's better war movies. I mean, compare that to Bridge on the River Kwai, where everybody dies at the end except the one guy. And it's all a suicide mission because they have to blow up the bridge that they've built as prisoners of war just to make sure that the Japanese don't have an advantage. That's a war story, and that's a real kind of story that those kind of things went on. This ragtag group of 8 buddies going in to find one kid so his mother doesn't have to go to another funeral. I think that's hokey. I disagree with you just on that point, Mike, but I think all your other points are great. It's brilliantly directed. It's so well edited, incredibly acted. The scenes where the Jewish prisoner is fighting with the Nazi and the stairwell and all that is
Yeah, when Opham's fighting
It's
Yeah.
brilliant. That's where the writing I think is top notch and really devastating and impactful. But I think the core premise of it, that may have been a little bit of an obstacle to get over.
Well,
I'll be honest with you, I don't think it looks good today. You look at that, it seems like a Hollywood plot.
Well, the thing is that I was watching the special features on the disc, and it's actually based on a real mission that happened. Like there were people who went out and they tried to go and find this guy. And I will agree, at one point, like when they do find Ryan, and then he's like, "Well, I'm not going to leave this bridge," and they go, "Well, maybe this is the best thing we should do is just help." Like I think a lot of them would say, "Well, fuck this, we're leaving the mission." But it's still, it never felt too fake because this was like a time when people signed up to go to war and they were willing to fight. But this movie shows like how war would screw you up, and it showed it
Sure.
so singularly. Like it's like just like during D-Day, like during the event, like when Vin Diesel is showing the other guy, I can't remember his name, but he's showing him, "Hey, look, fish, I got the U tank," and then he like grabs his helmet and he just starts hyperventilating and crying. Like we, I haven't seen that in other war films. I didn't see it in The Deer Hunter. I didn't see it in Platoon.
Really,
But
you don't think Platoon was as good as Saving Private Ryan
no,
as
I
far as
don't
showing the horrors of
because
war? The people
it
just getting randomly shot in the foxholes and hiding underneath corpses and stuff like that, and all that kind of stuff.
it
I
felt more
think that stands
Hollywood
up
the
to it.
way it's shot, where Private Ryan, that felt more like a documentary. And the thing is, you actually like these guys and you can pick them apart, where in Platoon, everyone's just an asshole, and
Well, I'm not so sure that's true, but
well, mostly they
I
are.
like both films, but I think I think there's better war films. I think that in my opinion, and I disagree with you. I'm sorry to say, but I think it's a very good film, and maybe the better film that year of those two. I think it's misses greatness by a couple of measures.
Yeah, and that's okay. If we all agreed on the same movies, then movies would be boring.
I mean, I
If
think Platoon has
yeah.
issues too, but anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, yeah, there's just so many like times where I'm just like, okay, I get it. These soldiers are corrupt, blah 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 blah. But I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I mean, the one good person or the two good people in that movie was Charlie Sheen's character and then Willem Dafoe's character. But like
But there were
outside,
some of the innocent guys caught in the middle. John
yeah,
McGinley, Johnny Depp. These guys are just
yeah,
trying to survive. Anthony Quinn's son. I mean, they're basically grunts who are trying to survive. They've got a certain amount of
yeah.
cynicism about it, but they're not villains like Tom Berenger's Sergeant.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why I like Private Ryan is like Platoon is kind of cynical, and I understand why because Oliver Stone actually went to Nam, and this is a very personal story for him. Where Private Ryan, like uh, Spielberg finds the heart and soul in people, where he's always accused of being overly sentimental, but I think he's the person who does sentimental perfectly, and here he does it so right in this movie. And like that movie, like there's so many times like I just see it bring people to tears. Like people who actually served in the war had to walk out of the theater during the D-Day sequence because it reminded them so much of like the time they spent there. Like I don't think other war movies did that, where actual veterans would see that and they'd be like, I gotta leave. This is too much.
Well, I mean, again, I think there's so many parts of that movie which are terrific. Um, I'll just make one other complaint. We can move on to others because there's
Yeah,
other complaints
right.
too.
Yes, yes.
One of the things I don't like about it, and I think it's very hokey and very Hollywoodish, and I think Spielberg shouldn't have done it, is I don't like the book ending of the old man going up to the grave and then did I earn it? And then you're trying to figure out who is it? And they
Mhm.
dissolve from his eyes to Tom Hanks' eyes as they're driving, motoring up to the beaches in D-Day. And you think it's him, and it's not. It's of course Matt Damon because he's Private Ryan, and that makes sense. But I
Yeah,
think that's hokey too. I don't
yeah.
think you needed that. I think you should have just started with D-Day and
Mhm.
have it going on there. And then you're thinking for 30 seconds, well, nothing's going to happen. And then as soon as they get there, boom, 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 all these people are shot to death before they even get a chance to catch their breath and get out of the carrier. I think that would have been a better ending. And then you can still end with Matt Damon's character going to the thing and saying thank you for him. I don't know if he needed to say, "Did I earn it?" Like Tom
Yeah.
Hanks when he's dying says, "Earn this." Like
Yeah.
I don't think it was his to earn. I think it was he was placed in that position by the brass, so he didn't owe them anything except this is what they wanted. He wanted to stay, but those things to me are corny, and I think they mar an otherwise very well done film. But again, we're just
I
we're
thought it
this
was
far apart as
beautiful,
opposed
but
to this far.
yeah. I maybe it's just me. I kind of like stuff like that. I thought it was beautiful, because it
But
was
that
a
takes away
bookend.
from the realism, Mike. You're selling me on realism here, and those kind of
Oh,
Hollywood endings where it's bookended, and we have to figure out whose eyes those were. That's hokey. That's Hollywood hoke.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of guys who go up to the
There are. I'm
yeah,
not debating that.
yeah,
I'm debating the screenplay that sets up that tease. It's a
yeah,
very Hollywood conceit. It's not realistic. It's like playing a game with us. Like, okay, it's a mystery to figure out who this is. I think
yeah.
that takes away from that realism you're talking about, which I think is very true through most of the rest of the film.
Yeah. Well, I think we can agree to disagree on it,
A
but
little bit,
that's the
not the
beautiful
same
thing.
kiss
I
on
think
that
that's a
one.
future episode that we we could have. We
Throw,
will
throw
go to
some Guinnesses.
war
We're
over
gonna throw
Saving
some.
Private Ryan.
We're gonna
No,
throw some Guinnesses at each other.
yeah, exactly. I'll throw them like Molotov cocktails.
There you go.
Jagalores! All right, but anyways, but I don't know if you ever remember this movie. But more than the movie, I'll always remember Jack Nicholson's reaction.
And
Crap.
the Oscar goes to Crash.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Whoa.
preempt your good clip there. Yeah, Jack Nicholson is like, what the hell, man? It
Yeah.
was very nice.
Do you remember Crash? And not the Cronenberg film, because I remember that
Right.
movie
Yeah,
a
that was a
little
good movie.
more.
I
Yeah.
like Crash. In fact, people forget, and this is one of those things about history and sort of what time does to memory and or sort of the collective opinion of things. Crash was a very well reviewed movie in its time. Was it as great and as impactful and maybe revolutionary on certain levels as Brokeback Mountain? No. And in Brokeback Mountain and Ang Lee were winning everything on the march up to that. So that was a big surprise. But some people say, "Oh, it's the worst Best Picture winner ever." Folks, you haven't looked at all the Best Picture winners then if you say that, because there are far worse ones. The Greatest Show on Earth, there's a couple of duds from the 30s. I would even argue that recently some things like the Green Books and some of those kind of things weren't up to snuff of some of the better films that were edgier and more interesting and dramatic in the day. I mean, I think for me, if I'm going to say like what is the most egregious sort of toppler of a better film is I like The King's Speech, but I think it's kind of crazy that ended up winning against The Social
Social
Network, which to me
Network.
was so
Yeah.
much of the time. It was of how
Yeah.
we're changing in our society, what makes friends and relationships, business. The King's Speech, as somebody famously said, I forget who it was, but said the King's Speech could have been made 50 years ago, where the
Yeah.
Social Network had to have been made that day. And that's not just the history of, obviously King George and stuff, but it just had this sort of old fashioned feeling to it. And it was very well done, beautifully acted, cleverly scripted. I mean, Colin Firth is fantastic in it. It's a very tricky performance and he's great. But I mean, Brokeback Mountain, was expected to win. I think that's why some of these hit harder than others when you have a surprise at the best picture level, which nobody was really expecting.
Yeah. I mean, here's my thoughts on Crash, and it's probably the same thoughts everyone else had. Is like I saw Crash and I'm like, this movie just feels like a collection of like very cliched moments and overly convenient plot devices
Mm-hmm.
like shoved together. And then the movie is trying to drive home its theme of racism, but the way it drove it home was so like, we're gonna make a speech about this. And it felt more like soapboxing than it did like the
Mm-hmm.
rare moments that I remember from the movie. There was one scene where one cop's talking to Don Cheadle and they use the most egregious word you could possibly imagine, but then they break down why he used that word. And then there was like the little girl in the car crash and like something saved her, but the thing is, all the nominees from that year I remember really well. Not just Brokeback Mountain, but Capote, Good Night and Good Luck, Munich. Like these
Yeah.
are really good movies.
Walk the Line was up too. That was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Johnny Cash bio, which is very well done.
I still remember Walk Hard better, but
You couldn't have had Walk Hard without Walk the Line.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, and I think Walking Phoenix was nominated for Best
He
Actor.
was. He was.
Yeah, for playing Johnny Cash.
He won
Man,
the Golden Globe along with Reese Witherspoon in the movie, but they did not. Well,
no, Reese Witherspoon. I think
Reese
she did
Witherspoon
win.
prevailed. Yeah, she won,
Yeah.
but at the Oscars, but the others didn't.
Yeah, yeah, and then she got a DUI and told someone, "Do you know who I am?" But that's stupid. I don't even know why I'm bringing that up.
Well, but you raise a good point about Crash. Is I think its script, which was a very specific meditation on not only racism but sort of community and coincidence, and the fact that Tandy Newton, after getting fingered by the racist corrupt cop played by Matt Dillon at the traffic stop, is of course in a traffic accident later, and he's the cop who arrives on the scene and then saves her, and so he's kind of redeemed. I mean, does it play? Yes. Is it very well acted and dramatic as hell? Hell yeah. But again, it's you can see the screenwriting there, and I think in other places you don't want the screenwriting to be that obvious, because I think coincidence and convenience, ex machina, do what they call it, things that come in to help straighten out the plot or move the plot, they get a little bit heavy-handed. And I think Paul Haggis, while being a good screenwriter by and large, and I think he did a good job with a very wide array of cast members and scenes in that movie, it just didn't have the sophistication. I think the relative timeliness of something like Brokeback Mountain, which I think really, dare I say, broke a lot of ground and was very subtle, very sophisticated. I think it was a love story that everybody could relate to, and yet it was about two gay men in the most unusual of places. Sort of this sort of standard bearer where macho men are in the world of cowboys. But yeah, it's funny. I even look at the pictures you've got up here on the screen. I mean, Citizen Kane lost Al Green with My Valley. Al Green is not regarded as a great film by any means today. It's considered probably a good film, and at the time it was well liked. But everybody was afraid of, stepping on the toes of the character that William Randolph Hearst, that Citizen Kane was a very thinly disguised version of, because he ran all the papers and had columnists and everything else, and they didn't want to step on his toes, though. Unbelievably, in some respects, Citizen Kane did win for screenplay, so it wasn't completely ignored. My biggest one of the ones that you've got up here is also Goodfellas. To me, was Martin Scorsese's masterpiece.
Yeah,
and I don't think Dances with Wolves is anywhere near in the pantheon of great films and or Best Picture films. I think it was a good star vehicle. I think it was interesting. I liked it at the time. But when you look at what Goodfellas is and how iconic that movie has become over the years, and I think it's definitely one of Scorsese's best. It's a shame that he didn't win for that. I like The Departed. I don't think he's ever been better than Raging Bull, which you also have down there, or Goodfellas, and he didn't win for either of those. But again, context is everything. I know you don't like Ordinary People, but Ordinary People was a very big hit at the time. It was very well regarded and praised because of the way it treated family motifs and psychology, and seeing a doctor for mental problems that hadn't been done before. Now, all that stuff is part and parcel with every other post on Instagram, but in 1980 it wasn't. But then again, to your point and why I think they're on your pictures here, Scorsese has been ignored for a couple of great films, and that's probably not right.
Yeah, and the thing
are very often wrong.
I should say I don't dislike Ordinary People. I just have to see it because I haven't seen it.
No, how dare you? Come on, you have to see it. Then maybe you'll think better of it.
Exactly. And I think the result is when I see it. And here's the thing: it also was filmed in and takes place where I grew up, so I'm just kind of I don't want to get.
You want to shun it,
yeah.
But it's funny how we're doing this show, because there are so many things. If you look back at Oscar history, So many times they've gotten it wrong. So many performers haven't gotten their due. So many directors. I mean, of course, we talk about Scorsese. Hey, at least he won an Oscar.
Yeah.
Kubrick didn't win an Oscar for directing. He won one for special effects for 2001, which is great.
2001.
But Alfred Hitchcock,
got nothing,
generally
yeah.
considered to be the greatest director of all time, never won an Oscar. I mean, he got an honorary one, I think, in '68.
Yeah.
But so at least they did
Noah
that. But
got an honorary one. Oh yeah, and I think when Hitchcock got his honorary one, like he just said thank you and then left, and
yeah,
that was
it was very short and sweet.
Yeah.
And I think part of that was probably, a certain amount of frustration and or bitterness. Paul Newman was nominated for a number of times, and then they gave him an honorary Oscar. And then the next year they gave him the Oscar for Color of Money. Well, they already gave him his honorary Oscar for the 6 or 7 movies that they probably should have given him an award for, but then they give it to him for Color of Money, and he's good in that. Was he better than some of the other people that year? The Oscars often do makeup awards or career awards, or their timing is off just in I always laugh at how Renee Zellweger did not get nominated for Jerry Maguire. She should have won for Best Supporting Actress that year. That was the best female performance, and it's, become a classic since then in the whole movie, and You Had Me at Hello and those kind of things. And then she, does a couple other great films like Bridget Jones, which she was, nobody thought she was going to do that British accent so well, and she was great in that. She went for that. And then she does Chicago and, sings and dances and plays this character, wins Best Picture, and she loses for that. So finally they get around to giving her an Oscar, and it's for Cold Mountain, which most people would probably say is one of her least performances. Yeah. So, the Oscars, their timing and their reasoning and all that kind of stuff leaves a lot to be desired.
I believe she has 2 Oscars now.
She does. She won for Judy too, which Garland. A lot of people thought that award was more for Judy because, of course, Judy Garland never won an Oscar. She got an honorary one, a special Oscar for The Wizard of Oz, but then she lost in competition for some amazing work like A Star Is Born. She didn't win for that. She didn't win for her supporting turn in Judgment at Nuremberg. It was sort of a way to honor her. I also think that's Rami Malek's Oscar, that people feel bad that Freddie, who am I blanking on his last name now, right? From
Mercury?
Freddie Mercury, excuse me, from Queen, died of AIDS. He was one of the first people who's famous who did, and, his career was sort of cut short and everything. And, this is an honor to him, and he was a funny character, and Rami Malek was able to play it well. But, is that an Academy Award-winning performance versus some others that have been snubbed? I don't know. Maybe not. But
and
I
that
think there's
year,
better awards that they could have given it to.
And that year particularly was bad because that was the year Green Book won Best Picture. And the thing is, the other movies that were in there, like they got Black Panther, which is pretty good. Black Klansman, which I think should have won.
I would have given it that one too. Yep.
Yeah. Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite. I don't remember it. Oh,
and it was very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Yorgos Lanthimos.
Yes,
was the favorite.
Yeah.
Oh, I did see The Favorite.
Yeah, I think it's a great film.
Yeah, it was a really good one. But you see, they had The Favorite. They had so many, and they had Black Klansman. Like those two, like out of and Roma.
Right, that's right.
Those
Roma
were all
year.
good ones, and yet like the most basic, easy to write, sentimental movie one. I know Ian Simmons doesn't agree with us on that. He's a big defender of Green Book. I'd love to do an episode on that, but that would require.
Well, the other thing that I think helps to understand as we look at Oscar voting is not too long ago, maybe a decade now, maybe it's a little bit more than that, the Oscars went to the preferential ballot.
Yeah.
And what that meant is that you got so many points, a film got so many points for where it placed on the list of each voter. So let's say I put Roma at the top on my ballot, and that's 10 points for that. And if Green Book is like 2 or 3, then that's getting 9 or 8 points. If I'm a Green Book fan or like Green Book, and that shows up in 1, 2, or 3 for most of them, but some people maybe didn't like Roma. Maybe they felt because it's a foreign film, it's a little bit arm's length or whatever, and that goes lower on the list, then you get lesser points. So oftentimes in the last 10 or 15 years, the film that wins is sort of the one that has less detractors, people from it who wouldn't be bemoaning it or disliking it. Then that means it's a little bit more of the maybe conventional or safe choice. Not saying that it's necessarily to be maligned because of that, but it's definitely the more popular film there versus ones that may be polarizing. And that's the only category that has the weighted ballot, is the Best Picture thing. So the Best Picture wins are very different from the way they were back in the majority of the history of the Academy, when they had only 5 Best Picture nominees and you voted for one, and it was the accumulation of the votes that got you the Best Picture prize, not your sort of weighted ballot.
Yeah. Have you ever had a moment where you watched the Oscars or someone lost and it actually made you upset when you saw it? Because I have a few of those. One of them in particular that is kind of relevant to today is I like No Country for Old Men, but I have to say when I saw it after the Oscars and everything, and after seeing There Will Be Blood, I felt pretty underwhelmed. You know, I was kind of like, okay, this is good. This is an existentialist Western. You know, it has amazing cinematography, great mise en scène in general, with with no score and everything like that. Javier Bardem's fantastic. I thought Tommy Lee Jones, like, I understand what he was going through, but it dragged it a little bit more than it needed to, where There Will Be Blood, I feel like, is one of the best movies within the last 20 years now. And if Paul Thomas Anderson, look, if he at least wins Best Director, I'm okay with Sinners winning Best Picture. But I just hope the Academy doesn't give the Oscar to someone else. I'll just say that for this year,
Well,
because
I
I think
think
PTA is owed it. He's had a long history.
Well, but
and
see, you're a bad voter then too, Mike, because you're not just voting on that single performance, you're voting it on the lifetime thing, which there's been
well,
so
and
many of
also
those
he did
lifetime
direct the
awards
best
given out.
movie.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying that that's kind of the way that people vote, and they vote for, he deserves this because he hasn't won before, or it's a lifetime achievement. I'm not saying that you can't vote that way, or there's nothing necessarily insulting or bad about that on your part, Mike. I'm just saying that those things all play into the Oscars. And so a lot of times it is a popularity contest of some sort, because people bring their emotions in it. They bring in who hasn't won before. I mean, Emma Stone isn't being talked about for Begonia this year, but she got on the list of 5 when there could have been at least 5 other actresses who got on there, because she's so great in that film. I think she's maybe the actress of her generation. She's just hitting on all cylinders right now, but she doesn't have a chance in hell of winning because she's already won twice. Meryl Streep went, I mean, how many nominations did she have? I think she's had 21 nominations for acting awards, most of them Best Actress, and she's only won 3. And in any other year, if she had logged, Cry in the Dark or Out of Africa when it won Best Film that year, and should have swept her in the winner's circle as well, she didn't win because she'd already won twice before. So those kind of things, unfortunately, play in these, and maybe some people are too controversial or whatever else. But I agree with you. Or I know where you're coming from. Let me put it that way. I like No Country for Old Men. I like There Will Be Blood too. They were both really well-regarded films at that time, and I think that was a kind of legitimate competition that year. I think the Coen brothers have been around longer and maybe had more hits or just movies that got the attention of the Academy. And this was, such a newfangled Western that it predominated a little bit more. But Anderson has been well received through nominations. He just hasn't won. Now this year, I think the good news for you as a Paul Thomas Anderson fan, or me as a Paul Thomas Anderson fan as well, is he's going to win adapted screenplay. So he'll walk out of there with at least 1 Oscar. He still could walk out of there with 3, but who knows? I mean,
but I want him for director. I'm greedy.
Well, and he might win for that. He might win for that. I think he probably is the better bet. But at least if he's beaten by Ryan Coogler, it's not like he's being beaten by somebody who doesn't deserve accolades. I mean, that achievement is a great film as well. They're kind of neck and neck now as we go into the final stretch. It's kind of a fun thing because now we get to watch the show and it'll be exciting, as opposed to everything's a foregone conclusion because the same 7 winners have won in every contest since they began in December. But we'll see. I think the one thing I always tell people about the Oscars is root for your favorites. Vote for who you think is going to win for whatever reason, career award, win it outright because they're the best this year, 100 other reasons. but realize that you take the Oscars with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and I always like watching the Oscars like it's the Super Bowl. It's like the
Yeah,
artist Super
it is.
Bowl
It is the Super Bowl for
because
film fans.
yeah, because like I'll like actively like cheer and like like yell at the screen, like it's so like I can't. I think I remember when Sean Penn beat Mickey Rourke. I
Yeah,
was not happy about that because I'll be honest. If you've seen the documentary The Life and Times of Harvey
yeah,
Milk, which
yeah.
is way better than Milk.
I agree.
Yeah.
And
Uh
I love Mickey Rourke and the rest of it. He broke my heart, and I
yeah.
think that role was such a incredible comeback for him as well. And he won the Golden Globe. He won a bunch of other awards. Sean Penn had the, I think, prestige of being a great actor more than
Yeah.
Rourke did, and that may help him win a third one this year. Although I think he could win it and maybe should win it outright because it's a very memorable villain, and
Oh
he's
yeah.
very strong in it.
He's
Um, he's a
you like
little
black
cartoony
girls?
in scenes, but other ones he's like, I would tell that person that they do not belong to be, they should not be a citizen, let alone on this planet.
Yeah.
I mean, he says all those lines. He's
And
really a
just
good actor
his
about comedy. You forget how
mannerisms.
good he is about comedy, but
Yeah.
he kind of made his name early in his career as a comedic actor, mostly.
Yeah. And I
Um,
just love what he does with his face. Like at one point they're just talking to him and he goes like I'm like,
yeah,
what the
yeah.
fuck?
His best
Like
scenes
he's
in it are,
literally
I
a
think,
lockjaw.
yeah,
Yeah.
his best scenes are with those creeps from the committee, and he's like, I think I would tell them to go to hell, or I've never done that. No,
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
lie his way into getting their Illuminati membership or whatever it is. But
But
the other thing I always say too is, and we've talked a little bit about it on your show before, but there's always the context of what that year was. Like, I
mhm.
know it's kind of become popular, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, to trash the movie The Artist. But again, it's
I
about
like that
Hollywood. It's
movie
about
so
acting.
much though.
I did too. It's very
Yeah.
charming and it's well done and it's well acted. But some people are like, how did Jean Dujardin win? Well, the competition that year wasn't as heavy as some of these other years when there's really strong, vivid performances. The main competition he had that year was George Clooney for The Descendants, who's very good in that, but I think he
Yeah.
was better than Michael Clayton a few years before that.
Mhm.
But nobody knew who Jean Dujardin was, and people thought he was a silent movie star. He seemed like that
Yeah.
character so much, and he was funny, and he did the dancing and the pathos and stuff as well, the sympathy parts. And he was great with the dog, little Uggy. That dog was a big sensation.
Yeah.
But people forget that now when they look at, well, let's rate the best films of all time in order over on whatever clickbait movie site we've got, and then they'll trash that one. It's like, yeah, but in 2011, when that film won, I think it was 2011, this
Yeah.
was the lay of the land there, and that was a big hit movie, and it won everything, and it won at Cannes and for Desjardins, and it was just kind of this wonderful upbeat thing in a time, kind of depressing recession-y kind of time where that kind of movie broke through.
I thought I loved it when I saw that movie.
Yeah,
I'm like, I
yeah,
could see why this one. It's so creative.
it
It's a
is.
it's a silent
Music and
movie.
the
Yeah.
whole approach to it is very, very touching. And then it's also sort of sad when he loses his career and he's selling off all his stuff.
Yeah. And I feel like that movie is kind of timeless too because now we're not talking about we're talking about AI making
That's
movies. And it's
right.
like, what about that human element? What happens when someone who's a
That's
silent
exactly
actor
right.
can't use their voice? It's like it's something that can keep reflecting to today. So yeah, I thought it was beautiful and I didn't get the hate for it like when it came out. I just didn't understand the hate.
Yeah.
Um
I mean, I think in very rare instances, I mean, I don't even know if I could count them on one hand, Mike, that a film won Best Picture that was just an awful choice. I mean, there's lesser choices, and more often than
yes.
not, if you go down the history of the Oscars, you and me as critics, or most people as friends, and said, these are the 5 nominees, what should win? It probably isn't the one that won,
Yeah.
because, certain films have lasted and are looked better with the test of time. I mean, The Godfather and Unforgiven and Schindler's List and Ben-Hur and some of those,
Yeah.
yeah, those are still great films today. And by and large. But Lord of the Rings won every Oscar that year, including Best Song, its third movie, because it didn't win really much of anything the first two, and they had to give it to that because here's Peter Jackson with not one, not two, but three great films that really told the story well, made a ton of dough for the industry.
And the first fantasy film to win the Oscar.
And exactly. And it was so well done in the effects and everything that was considered there. But it won every single thing it was nominated for.
Yeah.
It's like,
I loved
the best song that year?
I loved it. It's
maybe, I guess. But so, there's always the context and certain things, but most of the years I'm disappointed in the film that wins Best Picture. Like I would have picked something else, but I don't think they've given it to an awful film generally. I mean, the year that we talked about Green Book, I didn't hate Green Book as a film. I didn't fancy it much, but compared to Roma and a couple of other things that were nominated that year, I think it was definitely fourth or fifth, somewhere down on my list, if not farther down. But I mean, The Greatest Show on Earth is kind of a bad film, but they needed to give something to Cecil B. DeMille, who was making all these films that were big hits and everything else, and it's watchable. I mean, it's not like some piece of trash or something, but it doesn't seem like a Best Picture winner when you watch it. But yet, that's the one that won that year.
Yeah, and there is, like you said, the politics that come into it,
Sure.
And especially this year, politics is going to be a big issue because you have Sinners, which represents race, and then you got One Battle After Another, which basically represents the fight against authoritarianism, and
as well as race.
Looks like ice.
It's all about if it wins. And I think one of the reasons the critical community has responded to it is not only they have always been fans of PTA, which they should. He's great, and he's great consistently, and he takes risks. But it couldn't be a more timely film. I mean, even though it's not about today, it seems like it. And that story with everything that's going on, even in just the first, 6 months of 2025, and then this film comes out. This film seems to be all about ICE or the ICE ethos, and it couldn't be more capturing the sort of anger and frustration of the American public about what our government is doing. So it's very of the time. I think Sinners, to your point, because so much of the ICE thing is about race too, but Sinners, I think what I loved about Sinners, and I'll just tell you this quickly and why I would vote for that over One Battle After Another and some of the others in the categories. What I loved about Sinners is I love the fact that you have this clearly like, okay, we're in the Jim Crow South. Do blacks belong there? They do if they stay with themselves. That's why they create the jukebox for their own kind, because they can't go to these other places. They want something. It's like by us, for us kind of stuff, right? And then along comes, these musicians who want to sort of co-opt the music. It's like the story that Delroy Lindo's character tells, right? And then it's almost like saying, well, you belong to us and you can live forever and you can get back at your enemies. And I mean, pure devil stuff. Like, you can turn those rocks red. Jesus, you have the power. But ultimately the tribe, if you will, that I think is the one they determine. And it's why the main character sticks with his guitar and into when he becomes Buddy Guy. Is that music is his tribe. His creativity is his ultimate tribe in a way. And I just love that is a message, that the arts is that. And I think that's personified in that great scene where you see the dancers from all different kinds of countries, whether it's Japan or, Africa, and then even future people, with rap artists and stuff like that, DJs, the idea that music is this thing that transcends culture, transcends time, transcends race and all that it becomes something that everybody collectively kind of shares. I think it's a marvelous message and dare I say a positive one, even in a horror movie.
Yeah. One thing I will say I like about both movies is that you can't really categorize them, because One Battle After Another, it's a comedy, it's an action film, it's a thriller, all kind of mixed together. Where Sinners, it's a horror movie, it's a musical,
it's a period piece.
Like both movies just combine categories together into something that is sort of timeless. And I mean, I'll agree, this year it'll be kind of between those two. And I mean, of course, I have my PTA bias, but
sure.
because I just don't want him. I feel like if he doesn't get it for this, he'll never ever get it. You know.
Well, never say never because you never know what he might have up his sleeve. But
Yeah.
the funny thing about it is, as I was preparing for the show, I was thinking about the biggest snubs, and some of the worst Oscar snubs are I feel even worse for. I mean, I feel bad for Scorsese not winning for what I think is his masterpiece, Goodfellas.
Yeah.
But he did win ultimately, and it never really slowed him down as a filmmaker. But I feel sorry for people like Glenn Close, who've been nominated 8 times and hasn't won, or Diane Warren is. She's sitting on 17 nominations without a win for best song. Now, I'm not a big fan of the best song category anyway, but or then there's the long history of not only horror being ignored by the Academy, but comedy. I mean, a lot of people thought Steve Martin was going to win the Oscar for Roxanne. He didn't even get nominated. A lot of people thought Eddie Murphy was going to win for The Nutty Professor. He wasn't even nominated. People like Gene Wilder, Cary Grant, even Hugh Grant. Hugh Grant won a number of awards for Four Weddings and a Funeral, did not get a Best Actor nomination. So, I think when we talk about the worst snubs in Oscar history, I dare say I think it's the comedy category. They rarely nominate them, and if they do, they win. And the only time that I can recall that a character in a farce won an Oscar was Kevin Kline for A Fish Called Wanda. And I think part of the reason that he won is he's also a very good dramatic actor who showed that he could do comedy and farce. But if it was just a Jim Carrey, let's say, doing something funny like in Dumb and Dumber, well, they're not going to nominate him for that. And even when he tries to go dramatic and do the Man in the Moon or the Truman Show, they still won't give him this due. They just somehow, I guess, think that comedies aren't serious enough for the Oscars to be bestowed upon. But that's, to me, the biggest snub in the history of the Oscars, that the comedy doesn't get its due.
Well, One Battle After Another is kind of a comedy.
There you go. So if it wins, that's a good one. It's a dark comedy, and that's pretty significant if it wins.
I mean you can't take movies serious.
Love was a comedy winner too. So, it's very rare that kind of movie prevails in the
it's hard to take a movie seriously when one of the lines is Semen Demon. So,
do you like black girls?
I love them. But like that movie has so many memeable moments.
Said the style's like, give me the worst haircut you can imagine.
No, he did that thing. What's his name? Paul Wolfowitz, was that it? Like when they were preparing to do like 9/11 announcements or like attacking Iran announcements, like one of Bush's guys, he put like a comb in his mouth and then he like combed it over, and that's what Sean Penn was copying.
Oh, that's funny.
But
it's such the military haircut. Like, okay, if I have it long for 3 inches in this one section, it's like I have hair. The rest is just a buzz cut. It looks so silly. But I mean, you could still win. I mean, I think I've been looking at the people who are predicting this weekend. Some are saying, I think, Sinners is breaking at the right moment, the last sort of leg of the race. Others are saying, how do you defy the fact that One Battle After Another has won BAFTA, DGA, PGA, Golden Globe, everything. I mean, the only thing I'll say about this year, and I don't know if Sinners wins, again, I think it's a toss-up. These two movies are beloved and they're really nominated. But the one thing that could possibly help Sinners beyond the critical community loved both films too, but they've been PTA people for a long time, and that certainly helped. But Sinners got 16 nominations, the most nominations ever for a film. Now, you can have films like Color Purple and The Turning Point, which got 11 nominations and didn't win any. I mean, that's a sad statement. But you get 16 nominations, the most of any film ever, and you don't win Best Picture, that's a little bit I mean, in the Oscar world, that would be very understandable, but in a logical world, that's a significant achievement that you would think might give it the edge. And if it does win, it may very well be.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. But
No,
I'm okay. I'm okay if it wins picture. That's okay. But I already stated my bias. But I still put it in my top 10 of my favorite films.
That's great.
Yeah. It's still in my top 10. It was a little bloated, but it was still in my top 10. But there was one that one of my friends mentioned to me when Ellen Bernstein lost the Oscar.
Ellen Burstyn.
to Julia Roberts
Yeah,
because
she lost
Ellen
for
Burstyn put her whole heart and
yeah,
soul
yeah.
into Requiem for a Dream.
Right.
Where like, look, Julia Roberts is fine, but it's like, okay, just be cute in this movie. It's like, okay, I can do that, and that's what she got the Oscar for.
Well, but the one thing to know too is more people saw Aaron Brockovich, and then
Yeah.
Steven Soderbergh won the Oscar for Traffic. He was nominated for both films for directing that year, so it was a big hit film. And a lot of times, if you see it, there was a great article written by Pete Hammond of Deadline magazine a couple of weeks ago, where he's writing about how the voting actually works, and depending on what they see, and they have to admit that they've seen, and they have to fill out some things. They don't get around to all the films. In fact, a lot of people have not been voting as much because they have been able to prove that they saw the films. And even in the shorts category, the shorts are always the hardest to predict, Mike. In fact, year after year, my Oscar ballot is how many wrong did you get, Jeff? 4, and the 3 were in the shorts. Because I like what I like to the shorts, and I'm trying to vote on artistic merit, but we don't know who sees it because it's not voted by everybody. Costume designers nominate costume designers, sound guys nominate sound guys, and then everybody votes on the final ballot. So you've got sound guys voting on costume design. That's why often the most costumes win, or the most obvious costumes win. Same with the most obvious acting, et cetera, et cetera. Though a lot of times they manage to get it right. Even the sound guys can look at the bigger picture and be right. But the live action, documentary short and animated short are voted on by people who have to go and see them and sign a paper that they have seen all of the nominees. You can't just say, well, I'm going to vote for the Pixar nominee this year because I worked on Pixar and I love those guys and that's all I care about, that they win. Nope. You've got to go to the theater, show that you've seen them, and then cast your ballot. So, there could be 200 people doing that. There could be 40 people doing that. We don't know. I'm sure it's more than that, but that's the hardest one to gauge because critics don't do those awards. They only do the guesses after the nominations, and but the actual, and who's got the time to do it? Who's got the time and is willing to take time? It's mostly actors. So like, I think if you're ever going to vote on a best animated short or a best live action short, keep in mind that the ones that have acting in it probably will do a little bit better. Or a famous actor, because actors are voting on it mostly. That's the biggest branch of the Academy, and those are the people who probably have the time because most of them are unemployed. They are the ones likely voting on the shorts.
Well, I'm wondering where I can even find them because I know the Music Box in Chicago shows them,
and the Landmark Century has them too. Still does through the weekend.
Okay,
They will ultimately end up, I think, on
me.
Apple. I think Apple gets them like 3 or 4 months after the Oscars, so you can find them there. But if you want to see them in the theater, which is really cool because they are worth seeing, you can see them. You can see them in the Landmark on the Music Box here in Chicago. And they send out DVDs now of them that they just pop into the DVD player at a lot of local markets. So they get out to smaller markets. And I was in Birmingham a decade ago, and I managed to catch them down there. And I looked up, and it's like Blu-ray. They just sent a DVD, and it worked fine. It's like, hey, that looked pretty good on the screen I saw it on, so no problem there.
Yeah. See, because that's the one nobody knows because I always wonder, like, did they just not know? They're like, this one when they vote on it. But no, I mean, that's how everyone's Oscar pool is. Like, you check everyone's Oscar pool.
Well, a lot of them don't have it in there because they say we can't see him or we don't know how that works, and I understand that. But if you got the authentic ballot and you can win at least one of those, I got 2 last year. I think I got documentary short wrong, but I couldn't believe it because those are always like. And I'm not boasting. Like I will get sometimes 5, 6 wrong, depending on the year. And who knows? Tomorrow I could get, or this Sunday I could get a lot wrong because I'm not sure. There's a bunch of toss-up contests, but those are the trickiest ones. Most of the time, it's like, how many did you wrong get? Well, 4, and I got those 3 shorts wrong.
Yeah, it's always those shorts that get you. But
for sure. So, Mike, let me ask you: what do you think is the most? If you had to pick one most egregious Oscar snub for your money, what would it be? Would it be an actor, a director missed? What's that? Shakespeare in Love? Okay,
yeah.
right.
I mean, losing a rape, that sucks. Yeah, but I mean the politics and the movie itself. I saw Shakespeare in Love in the theater instead of Saving Private Ryan in the theater, and it's the biggest regret I ever had in my entire life.
Really?
But,
well, that's interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to give you one that's a little bit not as egregious, but it's
Yeah.
still kind of egregious. Okay, in the history of film, Mike, there have
Yeah.
only been two that
Yeah.
won the National Board of Review, the National Society of Film Critics, the Los Angeles Film Critics Association, and the New York Film Critics Association. Now,
Mm.
despite the fact that we're in a good critics group and there's many of them out there now, those are still the big four. And those are the ones that people watch to see how they're gauging in regards to what they're awarding at the end of the film season. In that history of cinema, I think there are still only two films that swept those. One of them did not win the Oscar for Best Picture. The one that did, Schindler's List. Everybody, that was winning everything that year as a foregone conclusion. That's a great film. The other one was L.A. Confidential, and it got tripped up.
Yeah.
It got tripped up at the Golden Globes, where Titanic won, and then it was the Titanic Death March all the way. It opened on Christmas Day, I think, or Christmas weekend. And suddenly L.A. Confidential winning all these awards and, all this acclaim. And it was a tricky book, like we were once talking about, books that could have gotten sequel. James Elroy wrote 3 of them about his L.A. triptych. And it was well done, really one of the greatest adaptations. And he was very different because they had to condense a lot of it. And yet it couldn't close the deal at the Oscars. I always feel bad about that movie because it was so heralded, and yet, boom, it couldn't beat the tidal wave that was Titanic, or the iceberg that was Titanic.
Yeah, I know. I like how you said the Titanic Death March, or maybe the Death Sink. I'm not sure, but before we leave, we got a couple comments here.
Oh, okay.
This one comes from. Hang on, I got a full screen so I can
that's
actually
nice.
read it. Too far calls. Just read it, folks. He says, "Yo, bro, love your stream. Let's sometimes play together and share tips together." Oh wait, this is a bot. Anyways,
I thought maybe it was a secret admirer of yours, friend.
bots. It's probably like one of those sex bots or something. Anyways, why is there only 2 watching? Hey, I see a lot more numbers than 2 right now.
I'm sure they're playing.
But if for the 2 people who did see this, liked what I'm just kidding. If you guys liked what you saw or listened to when this actually is uploaded to podcast, which will be very soon, I have all the gears ready to do it. Please subscribe to YPA Reviews. I will be having my top 10 movies of 2025 uploaded on YouTube very soon, and it will be before the Oscars. So keep your eye on that. Jeff, where can we find your stuff?
Well, you can read my movie reviews at theestablishingshot.org. I'm also Jeff York Chicago on Instagram, where I a lot of times put the links. I also am Jeff York Caricatures in a couple of places, because if I like a movie or TV show a lot, I generally draw it. And speaking of, if you don't mind me doing a little self-promotion here, if you're interested in my caricatures of the 10 Best Picture nominees for your Oscar party, or just having them as a collector's item, or for your pool at the office or whatever, just let me know. Contact me. I'm available all on social media. You can find me at theestablishingshot.org to write me, and we'll go over to Venmo. There's 10 of them. They're only $20. They're digital downloads. You print them out on your own 8.5 by 11 paper, whatever you want, and have them for whatever you want. And it's a deal. Plus, I will draw the winner's name out of a hat of all the people who have bought them, and he will get a personal, hand-drawn, original Jeff York caricature of himself or herself that I will draw them as the ultimate winner. So there's a lot to get there for very little money, but you've only got a few days. You've got until Sunday night at 7, I guess, to contact me. And it's $20 through Venmo. We can figure it out through the DMs, but that's where you can find me.
Guys, get those pictures. Those pictures are amazing.
Thank you,
I can't wait to see your pictures of the Oscars. I hope something crazy happens so you can get a picture of that. I hope we get a Will Smith or a La La Land moment.
Actually, I'm excited that Conan O'Brien is hosting, because he's very good last year.
He was great. Yeah, he's great. I think he's a great choice. You won't get political jokes from him, but you will probably get a lot of commentary this year. So, but
and he was in a movie. He was in a movie this year. He's in.
That's right.
If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You.
And it was a very good movie. He played a therapist.
And he was very good in it. Yeah, very dramatic performance, and he was very good.
Yeah, Yeah,
Well, this
exactly.
was fun, Mike. Thanks
I've
for
always loved
having
it.
me. I really appreciated it.
Oh,
And
I
I'm
always
glad it
love
worked
having
out this
you.
time. My internet was fixed, and I think there were some problems with the block, but
Maybe
glad we had
one of Harvey Weinstein's guys are trying to stop us. I don't know. Maybe he's still
He
turning
knew
some
you
gears
really
somewhere.
disliked Shakespeare in Love, and he sent his minions.
I mean, I think it's just kind of mediocre, but but that's
Our only
okay.
disagreement. Our only
I'm
disagreement.
glad we're not just like I agree, I agree, I agree. That's boring.
Yeah.
You know, let's fight. Anyways, folks, if you liked what you saw, subscribe, all that stuff, blah 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 blah. Thanks a lot. We'll see you later. And